The shuttle descended like a silver scalpel into the artificial moon's gravity well, slicing through the glow of Car-FV's swirling atmosphere. Clyden 6 shimmered in orbit, a steel hemisphere embedded with antennae, glowing domes, and defense arrays, all humming in silence above the gas giant. It wasn't built for beauty. It was built to make things disappear. Commander Ryan Vex, known here as Dr. Harvick Juno, stared straight ahead. His breathing was shallow. His pulse, regulated by the implant beneath his sternum, read as non-human. His iris shimmered faintly with embedded HUD overlays, cycling ZY-code glyphs and biometric readouts. The mimic suit clung to his frame, correcting scent, body temperature, posture, an illusion born of trauma and precision. They'd scanned him twice already before docking. Neural resonance, blood volatility, vocal pattern lag. And he passed. When the ramp hissed open, Ryan moved with practiced stillness. Not too stiff, stiffness drew suspicion. Not too casual either. Every ZY call, Dranxian, Kivith, and Oolite around him radiated war-born arrogance. They shuffled into formation like scholars, but Ryan saw the old hunger behind their eyes. This wasn't science. It was sharpening knives behind a podium. The amphitheater loomed ahead, a colossus of obsidian alloy and translucent energy domes. Its signage, written in 8 Dominion dialects, translated above the entry gates. Extermination Optimization, a case study of Homo sapiens. Ryan's jaw flexed barely. He adjusted his collar and walked in. Row 3, seat 17. Just high enough to observe the stage without standing out. He slid into the cushioned chair, pretending to adjust a data pad, but syncing his retinal feed with the neural uplink stored in his neck. Data streamed in, crowd heat signatures, electromagnetic field anomalies, air composition spikes from pheromonal anxiety markers. 2 Oolites behind him were nervous. One Dranxian off to his left whispered to another in chirped clicks. Across the room, the stage lights dimmed. The amphitheater sealed with a hum, and the dome flickered, activating a privacy field. Every being in the hall became a bubble of silence and shadows. Inside Ryan's skull, his implant logged the encryption as ZYCO Class 8 Discourse Protocol. Top tier classified. He expected nothing less. A shadow approached the podium. And then the monster spoke. Let us begin with the myth of Terran indomitability. High Marshal Threx Orvan appeared like a ghost through layered projections. Clad in ceremonial boneplate and living cloth, he moved with slow grace. His voice carried a sharp contrast to his smooth motions. No translator needed. Every attendee heard him in their own tongue. Human resistance, he continued, has cost the Dominion 2 full campaigns and 73 subjugation attempts. But not because they are strong. Because they are flawed. Ryan didn't blink. Not once. He simply recorded. The objective of this seminar, Threx said, pacing slowly, is to design a psychological framework through which Homo sapiens may be deconstructed efficiently, physically, socially, and if necessary, spiritually. A sphere materialized above the stage, Earth. Real-time feed. Rotating gently in the void. Then, snap. The hologram fractured into layers. DNA. War records. Battle schematics. Torture resistance graphs. Emotional stress response curves. And there it was, Project Shatterline, blinking in a private file directory only accessible to the speaker. Ryan flagged it instantly. Threx pointed to a visual, a captured human in a restrained rig, eyes hollow but burning. You will note the subject survived 12 cycles without sleep. Without nutrition. Subject maintained hallucination-induced resistance for another 4, chanting mythic phrases, hold the line. Not one more step. Never give up the high ground. A few Oolites murmured. Threx let them. This is not bravery, he said. It is programming. It is illness. Ryan logged his voice print. Every intonation. Every pause. His fingers tapped quietly against his thigh, Morse code syncing to his offsite backup. The first session continued for 40 minutes. Theories flew, cultural vectors, grief bonding as a weapon, herd sacrifice tolerance. Not one mentioned what Ryan knew, that humans didn't resist because they were told to. They resisted because they decided they would rather die than kneel. That was never mentioned in data cubes. At the break, alien scholars filed toward nutrient chambers. Ryan stayed seated, seemingly engrossed in his datapad. Instead, he activated a local signal breach. Connection found. Threx's private chamber link. Firewalled but traceable. He bookmarked the address, inserted a silent worm. A copy of Project Shatterline began pulling in packets, bytes at a time. He'd need more access later. But for now, it was a start. Footsteps approached. Soft. Unsure. A Molariae, a thin-skinned being with a soft glow carapace, stood beside him. "Dr. Juno?" it asked, voice warbling. Ryan turned slowly. "Yes? Your credentials. I've reviewed them. There's an inconsistency. You listed your doctoral origin as Calyx 3, but Calexin biologic requires dual pupillary offsets. Yours are centered." Ryan didn't flinch. "Cybernetic correction from a warp fracture. I have the implant certificate if you'd like it." The Molariae hesitated. "Just long enough." Ryan offered a thin smile. "Or you could question me further. Loudly. In front of this crowd. And if you're wrong, you'll lose caste." A pause. The Molariae blinked, horizontal then vertical, and nodded. "Of course. My apologies." It drifted away. The lights dimmed again. Day 1 concluded with a soft chime. Everyone stood. Ryan didn't. He watched Threx descend through a private stairwell, flanked by guards with optic disruptors. He marked the route, syncing coordinates to his neural map. He had 48 hours to plant the disruptor, 48 hours to decode the rest of the files, and 48 hours to kill the architect of genocide without starting a galactic war. As the others filed out, Ryan finally stood and whispered under his breath. "You held a seminar about how to kill us." He paused, letting the words sit in the air. "And never thought one would attend." Morning on Clyden 6 didn't come with sunlight. Instead, the dome ceiling shifted to soft lavender hues, simulating dawn for species that needed light to stay regulated. Ryan Vex didn't. He trained in blackout bunkers and orbital siege pods. He rose from the single sleep platform in his chamber and knelt beside the wall, not to pray, but to unlock the hidden panel he'd installed the moment he arrived. A faint click. Inside, a neural spike, a backup transmitter, and a single-dose neuroblocker ampoule. He slid it into his arm without hesitation. The drug would mask emotional spikes, flatten neural noise, and make his brain nearly indistinguishable from a Molariae academic, at least for 6 hours. He needed every second of it. Day 2 began with bloodless excitement. Threx Orvon returned to the stage, this time flanked by 2 Kivith researchers, wide-bodied creatures with 3 arms and oily skin. The amphitheater grew quiet as a new projection flared above, scenes from the Neris conflict. Cities crumbling. Civilians in trenches. A single human girl standing atop a burning crawler tank, middle finger raised toward the descending ZYCO warships. The image lingered longer than necessary. "Humans," Threx began, "do not fear annihilation. They mythologize it. Their art glorifies death. Their songs are hymns to sacrifice. Their psychology is pre-wired for martyrdom." He paced again. "What do we do with a species that turns every defeat into legend? That breeds resistance from tragedy?" Ryan shifted slightly in his chair. His HUD tracked every movement Threx made, feeding into predictive targeting models. Behind him, 2 delegates from the Oolite Coalition whispered, unnerved. "We defeated the Varn in 5 days," one said. "But the humans, they made the siege last 5 years. For what? A canyon?" Ryan wanted to answer. Because it was their canyon. And because it wasn't yours. Instead, he listened. The Kivith scientist spoke next, pulling up emotional resistance graphs. Our data shows a 91% likelihood that humans will resist self-destruction stimuli unless a personal loss is involved. They don't crack from fear. They crack from silence. From isolation. The amphitheater screens pulsed. Case studies appeared, prisoners left alone in void cells for weeks. Some screamed. Some sang. One carved a full map of Earth's rail system into the walls with a fingernail. We propose, Bikiva said, that cognitive collapse is most efficient when applied through sensory starvation and cultural nullification. Strip the human of their myths, their memories, their names. Ryan felt his teeth clench. He inhaled once, shallow, controlled. The break came sooner than expected. The light softened, and nutrients were served, gelatinous cues in shades no human eye could name. Ryan didn't move from his seat. He didn't need to. His mission was about timing. Instead, he activated his neural uplink again and accessed the secondary firewall on Threx's private directory. He traced data residue from the previous download. Project Shadowline now showed a deployment phase. Live trials. Coordinates. 2 Earth-aligned colonies. New Pretoria. Sarah Van D. He froze. New Pretoria wasn't a military post. It was a terraformed civilian outpost. Families. Botanists. Teachers. Children. He closed the file. Eyes flat. Pulse steady. Dr. Juno? That voice again. Ryan turned to see Griv, the soft-spined Molari assistant, returning with a datapad. This time, Griv looked pale, even for a translucent creature. I ran a secondary check on your academic paper on reverse trauma conditioning. Ryan said nothing. It references a Terran Institute. That doesn't exist. A pause. You're not one of us, are you? The air around them was still. No one nearby could hear. The privacy fields were up. But Griv's tone had changed. Less accusatory. More fearful. Ryan leaned forward slightly. If you knew the truth, he said softly, what would you do with it? Griv hesitated. I'd report it. That's protocol. And what if your High Marshal is about to deploy a species-specific genocide on a peaceful colony? Does your protocol handle that too? Griv's glow dimmed. You're bluffing. Ryan tapped a code into his datapad, and a small hologram flickered between them, coordinates, atmospheric release patterns, and a ZY seal marked. Active deployment, classified. Griv's jaw opened and closed, but no sound came. Threx isn't running a seminar, Ryan said. He's launching a war. I just need 48 hours. Stay out of my way. Griv said nothing. Then slowly backed away, datapad trembling in his hands. That evening, Ryan returned to his chamber and opened the hidden panel again. His hands moved methodically. He set the disruptor core on the table. The device was small, fist-sized, matte black, coated in pulse-absorbing fiber. It could kill a ZY target in a silent burst, disrupting cardiac and neural activity simultaneously. No mess. No sound. All he needed was proximity. Problem was, Threx never walked anywhere alone. Ryan scanned Threx's movements. Every panel break, every entry and exit. The Marshal's private lounge was the only consistent opening, unguarded for 4 minutes daily during his meditation cycle. That would be the window. He began syncing the disruptor's timer to his neural pulse. It was a dangerous tether. Any stress spike could trigger premature detonation. But it was the only way to make it work inside the dome's anti-tech shell. As he calibrated the core, a message pinged silently in his HUD. Intrusion detected, door panel. Ryan spun. Griv stood in the doorway, eyes wide. Chapter end hook. Griv's glow flickered like a faulty lantern. You were right. Threx just ordered the virus to be moved. You've got less than a day. Ryan didn't move. His voice was calm. Then we finish this tomorrow. He looked down at the disruptor core and then back at Griv. But if you're here to stop me, I won't hesitate. I'm not here to stop you, Griv said quietly. I'm here to help. The virus was already en route. That was the first thing Griv said once the doors sealed behind them, shielding the room from the dome's surveillance field. The data was clear. Project Shatterline's primary canister had been moved off Clyden 6 hours earlier. Destination, New Pretoria. Delivery system, a ZY-called diplomatic vessel, declared as carrying restorative atmospheric filters. The filters would dissolve on entry. The neurovirus would settle into every lung. Panic, despair, cognitive collapse, custom engineered to fracture Terran will. No war. No fire. Just surrender. Ryan didn't curse. He didn't move. He stared at the readout. How long? 15 hours. If they're using a gravity slip corridor, less. He inhaled through his nose, let the breath sit in his lungs, and then nodded. Then we adapt. He moved quickly, every motion precise. He stripped the disruptor from its casing, added the plasma override core, and synced it to a backup detonation tether. It was no longer an assassination tool. It was now an event. You're changing the plan, Griv said. The plan changed without asking. You'll be caught. Ryan glanced up. I won't need to hide once I start. The next session was scheduled to begin in 20 minutes. Ryan walked the corridors like any other scholar, his gait unchanged, his expression fixed in the slight frown of academic thought. But inside, his pulse had quickened. His body was calculating probabilities, blind spots, guard rotations. He slipped past a security drone using a feedback loop from Griv's borrowed credentials. Down a narrow corridor, behind the eastern amphitheater wall, he reached the auxiliary ventilation shaft that Threx's private chamber used for air rebalancing. The panel came off with a flick of his magnetized glove. The space was tight, lined with exposed coils and resonance pipes. Ryan crawled through silently, palms absorbing the vibration of the dome's heartbeat. At the endpoint, he paused. Beyond the grate was Threx's meditation chamber, dim, circular, lined with ceremonial bone relics. The marshal knelt in the center, his breathing steady, his back turned. Ryan pulled the disruptor out, primed the device, and extended the magnetic anchor. His hand froze. 2 ZY-Co guards stepped into the room from opposite sides. Ryan's HUD had picked up no movement, no heat signature. They'd been cloaked. That meant Threx knew. This wasn't meditation. It was bait. Ryan pulled back carefully. If he left now, they wouldn't detect him. The disruptor was still in his hand. Then the intercom buzzed overhead. Dr. Harvick Juno. Please report to the amphitheater. The final session is about to begin. The voice was pleasant. Too pleasant. They knew. He didn't run. He stood, dusted off his sleeves, and walked calmly out the service corridor, back into the outer ring. Inside the amphitheater, every seat was full. Over 500 delegates. Scholars. Commanders. Strategists. All of them staring forward, waiting for High Marshal Threx, the Dominion's war architect, to unveil his final solution. Ryan walked down the aisle and returned to row 3, seat 17. Threx entered. Some of you may have noticed an anomaly, Threx said as he stepped to the center of the stage. One of our participants is misaligned. The room tensed. Ryan leaned back slightly in his seat. Not enough to draw eyes. Just enough to shift his weight. Threx's eyes scanned the rows. Slowly. Deliberately. We invited minds from across the galaxy to dissect the human condition, he said. And in our generosity, we failed to check our own back door. Ryan knew the room was now running a silent scan. Atmospheric particles, micro-changes in skin conductivity, neural discharge rates. His neuroblocker had maybe 6 minutes left. Threx turned to the audience. Let us, then, conclude with something unconventional. He gestured, and the stage shifted. A transparent pod rose from the floor. Inside was a human. Female. Mid-30s. Terran military jumpsuit. Pulse weak. Eyes closed. Ryan's jaw clenched. She wasn't dead. But she would be soon. This subject. Threx explained. Was captured near the Saravan V relay station. Her brain is partially shielded, which makes her an ideal candidate for Shatterline's Neural Cascade demo. Gasps. Applause from some. Silent approval from others. Threx continued. Observe. When the virus is introduced, her serotonin pathways will collapse. She will lose the ability to distinguish hope from futility. Within 40 seconds, she will ask for her own death. He tapped a holographic interface. A countdown began, 40 seconds. Ryan stood up. Not a word. Just a movement. Every eye in the amphitheater turned to him. Threx's expression didn't change. There he is. Ryan reached up and pulled the mimic visor from his face. The soft hum of his disguise system shut down. The illusion shattered. Gasps spread like ripples. One alien dropped its datapad. A Kivith warrior stood confused. Ryan stepped into the aisle. You spent 3 days explaining how to break humans, he said clearly. And you never asked yourselves why we never stay broken. Threx raised a hand. Security drones dropped from the ceiling. Guns unfolded. Kill him! Ryan pulled the disruptor from his coat and slammed it against the nearest power node. The amphitheater went black. One blast. One scream. A flash of light. The countdown screen froze at 4.38 seconds. The stasis pod blinked. Ryan was already gone. Panic wasn't part of the Zyko language. Not officially. But the sounds flooding the amphitheater now, the hisses, the guttural clicking, the uncontrolled electromagnetic shrieking from translation implants. There was no other word for it. Smoke curled from the ruptured power node. The stasis pod flickered erratically before falling silent. The Terran woman inside it coughed, sucked air into her lungs, and tried to stand. Ryan reached her first, yanking free the 4 lines from her neck. Easy. You're safe. You're not going back under. Her eyes locked on his. Recognition flared. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. All around them, guards scrambled. Some fired blindly into the dark. Others backed toward exits. The floating drones had reset into kill mode, their red sensors searching for targets. But Ryan was already moving, dragging the woman through the smoke and down the auxiliary stairwell beneath the stage. High Marshal Threx stood in the center of the chaos, unmoving. He didn't scream. Didn't chase. He simply spoke into the emergency override system, his voice steady, calm. Seal the lower levels. Kill all non-Dominion lifeforms. Lock access to shuttle bay corridors. He turned toward the blank space where Ryan had stood moments earlier. So predictable. Then he stopped speaking. Because the screens above him came back online. And they weren't under his control anymore. The amphitheater's domed ceiling transformed. Hundreds of data files began autoplaying in sequence. Every protocol. Every experiment. Every biometric scan and test chart from Project Shatterline. And Threx's voice, archived recordings he believed were secure, echoed across the entire hall. They will die quietly. They'll never see it coming. Let their resilience be their ruin. Delegates from across the Dominion watched in frozen horror. The Kiviths. The Molariai. The Oolites. Their translators did not buffer these words. There was no misinterpretation. This was not a war against combatants. This was extermination. Ryan moved through the bowels of Clyden 6 with the woman leaning on his shoulder, barely conscious but still aware. She was a survivor. He recognized it in her eyes. Burned but not broken. They passed through 2 locked security doors using Griv's stolen credentials. Ryan's neural map pointed them toward a hidden service elevator that led straight to the secondary launch bay. The corridor was lit in pulses, red emergency lights casting sharp, flickering shadows. You okay to walk? He asked. She nodded once. Blood in her teeth. Still didn't speak. At the launch bay, 3 Zyko guards blocked the exit ramp. Ryan didn't slow. He tossed the plasma charge, ducked left, and tackled the first one before the flash cleared. The second fired, but the round went wide. The third turned to run. Too late. The woman, silent until now, grabbed a loose support bar and drove it into the fleeing guard's back. A wet crunch. A scream. Then silence again. She looked at Ryan and shrugged. They didn't take my spine. The ship was old. Dominion class, but small, meant for diplomatic escorts or transport officers. Ryan powered it manually, overriding biometric locks and disabling the autopilot beacon. As the hatch sealed, he slumped into the pilot chair and fed coordinates into the NAV array. Destination, Free Earth space. Transmission, burst-wide relay to every outer colony, Earth Command, and Dominion civilian net. He hit send. Back on the amphitheater floor, Threx's voice had stopped. Because now, Ryan's voice played overhead. My name is Commander Ryan Vex. Serial #887LX. Earth Spec Ops retired. Survivor of Verma's 4. His image appeared above the dome, face uncovered, flanked by Dominion personnel caught mid-attack, mid-laughter, mid-lie. You hosted a seminar to teach each other how to break us. You called us beasts. Animals. Inferiors. You wrote papers. You built graphs. You called us irrational. And yet one of us walked into your house, listened to your speeches, and exposed your plan in front of your own audience. We're irrational? No. You're arrogant. In his private chamber, Threx stood alone now. He turned slowly to find Griv waiting in the doorway, datapad in hand. You helped him. Griv didn't deny it. You lied to everyone. To us. To the Council. You didn't seek deterrence. You wanted genocide dressed up in science. They'll erase you for this, Threx said. Then let them. And Griv left him standing there. 3 hours later, Clyden 6 went dark. Dominion High Command suspended Threx pending an investigation. 56 species filed protest documents. 4 declared neutrality. 1 broke from the Dominion entirely. And across Earth-aligned space, humans heard the broadcast. Not from Command, but from Ryan Vex. Epilogue, 2 weeks later. Undisclosed debrief location, Earth's outer ring. Ryan stood before a curved glass wall, watching a red star pulse quietly on the horizon. The woman, now in uniform, approached with a soft clink of boots. You could have killed him, you know, she said. Threx. Ryan nodded. Wouldn't have mattered. 1 corpse changes nothing. She studied him. What now? He smiled faintly. The first real smile in a long time. Let them keep holding their seminars. He turned to face her fully. Just make sure someone's always in row 3.